Welcome, Slayers of Giants, to Tilting at Windmills.
I am Chrys Gorman, the Executive Merchandising Director at NotAPipePublishing.
And I'm Benjamin Gorman, the publisher at NotAPipePublishing, and we're here with today's guests, Jes Honard and Marie Parks, best friends and co-authors of the Grigori Cycle, a multi-award-winning supernatural thriller series. They're also hiking and camping buddies and unabashed nerds who met on an Animorphs forum, and they've been co-writing since 2009. Jess lives in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Marie lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the book comes out very, very soon. So I am excited to hear how is everything going with Undeniable, which comes out in, gosh, it's days, right? Yeah. How's the launch going?
Yeah,
Um,
I think by the time anyone listens to this, it will be out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
three,
it's
4 days
Tuesday.
from now.
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been going good. It's been exciting. It's been a few years since we launched the first book in the series, and I think we kind of forgot about all of the energy around a launch. And so it's been kind of fun to tap back into that and reach out to our friends, new friends and old friends, and just like relive in that world in a different way because obviously we've been living in it for a while as we wrote the second book, but that's a very insular process. Just, me and Marie staring at a Google Doc being like, what are we doing? And now it's like, oh, we get to bring this out to the world. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to spoil anything. I love this series, so I'm being very careful for folks who have not read Unrelenting yet. But it ends with a big reveal, and so this second
Yeah.
book, we're kind of more in the world of it. So I wonder, have you had fans who are like, I've been just chomping at the bit for this second book. I'll bet people are very excited to now that we understand the world a little better. Have you gotten some fans who are, you know, expressing that excitement about this new lens on the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was one of the big pieces of like giddy feedback we got from readers of Unrelenting was like, okay, this world is really interesting and I want to know more about it. How do I learn more about the magic system? How do I learn more about these secret people? And so we deliver on all of that in the second book.
Oh, yes.
And I think also sort of trying to keep the through line, right, of the emotional arc as well, with our main character Bridget, and you know, the bombshell, as you mentioned, in Unrelenting has an impact. So how does that, play out in the second book?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, and I think you did an excellent job of that, balancing the kind of lore piece
hmm
that, we're really excited about, and that the familial relationship
Yeah.
piece, which is so essential. I mean, that is what, carries us through how will these characters bond, evolve, and, because that is interesting to watch. They've had some major things go on in their lives. So,
Yeah,
but to folks who've not
yeah.
read these, again, I don't want to give too much away, but read Unrelenting, read Undeniable. You will thank me. You're welcome.
Well,
Uh,
and for my part, from the marketing and merchandising perspective of that. Particularly the first year I got to take it to Unrelenting to a comic convention was amazing. Because it's so rare that I can tell a perspective. People come up, what kind of books do you like,
right.
right? And it's so rare that I can describe a book like yours to somebody.
Oh,
Mm.
Being able to tell somebody, we exist in a world where magic exists in a practical, right? In a practical manner. The magic makes sense. And it's not this like suddenly magical world, right? The notion of this hidden
Discovering, yeah.
magical, realistic world. And then even going beyond that and being able to talk about the ace representation within
I
the
mean,
book.
yeah, that was one big thing. She would
And
just
yeah,
say, oh yeah, and then there's
yeah.
an ace protagonist,
Because
and a lot of folks would go sold.
it's not something that we see a lot. There's still a lot that's missing in representation within literature. But my favorite part being able to tell people, because one of the concerns if you're buying the first book in a series that is not yet out is, am I going to end on a cliffhanger and then have to wait 3 years for the next book? And how the two
Yeah.
of you did that ending, where I could genuinely tell people it resolves the central story of the first book. There is no cliffhanger, but there's a
Well,
sense there's no real
it's a
cliffhanger.
big reveal, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
the
no, but
characters are made to be in a place where they are safe and stable.
well, being able to
This
say
first
it
book resolves, but
it resolves the central conflict of the first book. There's no
right.
cliffhanger of how that is going to, but there's still the
Oh
overreaching
yeah.
story that will be in the next one. But people love being able to go, I can read this book and don't have to wait 2 years to find how this one ends.
I don't
And
know. They're going to be chomping at the
oh
bit for
yeah,
the
no,
second. Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
Absolutely. But also the other part of that is and part of it is the ADHD and the pattern recognition is it's very rare when any form of media surprises me. The twist ending
Hmm.
or the who done it or the what, like I usually can see it coming.
Yeah, that one was a.
And that is the biggest rave review that I can give
Aw.
for Unrelenting,
Thank
is that I
you.
could not see the twist coming, even though going back and reading it the second
Yeah,
time,
it's not a Deus
I
Ex
could
Machina.
see the
Like it.
clues.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of nowhere. The clues were so subtle and the writing was so subtle that I did not see it
Aw.
coming.
Yeah.
And when I can genuinely be surprised by a twist like that, that is for me, that's the highest recommendation.
Yeah, that worked really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm,
thank you,
I'm
But
I'm
Chris.
excited for folks to get their hands
yeah.
on it. And there's a pedant out there who's listening to this show who heard me say chomping at the bit. I know it's champing at the bit, but we say chomping at the bit often. Whether you have been champing at the bit or chomping at the bit, you're going to be excited to read this
Do
book.
we actually say
It's
champing at the bit?
technically champing.
Why?
What?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
This is news to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Horses champ, they don't chomp.
I'm thinking back to my 8 years of 4-H and going,
Yeah,
I'm gonna be pulling up my phone and
to
Googling
champ.
why.
Yeah, not a common verb, champ, but it is
That's
champing at the bit is technically correct.
so
Chomping at the bit is
confused
what
by that.
human beings actually say. So I'm going to do
Really,
both.
well, chomping on the bit is
Right?
what horses
Makes
actually
sense,
do.
but they don't chomp, they champ.
I'm confused.
Okay.
Anyway,
The
okay,
more you
so
know.
right, and then I'm gonna be spending the next hour Googling, and then
Yeah.
probably ranting because I disagree and it makes no sense. Uh, and then trying to figure out the man who came up with it.
Yeah.
Uh, but before we devolve into that, I get to ask my favorite question that Ben indulges me with. My favorite question. What is the most dangerous animal you are willing to risk your life to pet? I love it. We get such unique answers. I love it so much.
I don't know that mine are unique. I don't know if it's like going back to some kind of ancient memory of mine of like stuffed animals or something, but like anything furry, which
Yeah,
can get me in trouble, right?
yeah.
Because if there's like a bear, why, why, why friend shaped, if not friend?
Why
And
soft and squeezable, if not huggable,
they've given me bears since I was a baby. And now they expect me not to go petting the bears in the
right?
mountains in Albuquerque. I'm sorry, what? So yeah, probably a bear. I did see a coyote the other day and was, yeah, squealing in excitement.
Puppy.
Anything like that. They're so cute. Foxes. I would definitely get eaten, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Coyotes, if you got close enough to them, you'd go, "Oh, my nose is telling me not to." Like they,
that's
like,
fair.
"Oh, it
Probably
looks
foxes
very
and
cute
bears
from a
too.
safe distance. Oh, it smells like an unbathed dog." That is,
I
I
I
can
could I could bathe that dog.
right?
Right?
I can definitely attest to the fact that Marie has the appropriate reaction when confronted with a bear. This has happened. She has been confronted with a bear and she did run away, which was
Okay.
correct in that
Didn't
situation.
go pick up the bear cub and like run away with it from keep it from its mother.
She did not.
I admire
No,
your self-restraint on that one, Ben.
she does not have a pet bear just like lounging around in
Yeah.
her home. At least I
I
don't
mean,
think
to
so.
be fair, the only reason I probably didn't pick up baby bear, well, there wasn't a baby bear. I think there was a teenage bear, which probably was too big. But because I had my arms full of my rat terrier Chihuahua mix, trying to keep her not seeing the fact that there's a bear like 10 feet in front of us.
Yeah.
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 Anyway,
I'm I'm more specific than Marie in my answer. I very, very specifically would just let myself into the wolf exhibit at a zoo as a sacrifice to all of the creatures there.
Yeah.
I've just been obsessed with them since I was a kid. I had like all of the different posters up in my room, and I remember when I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where the first book takes place, and the pieces of the second. Um, and the Cleveland Zoo was a really good zoo, and they got a wolf exhibit when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 or so. And I remember going there with my family and going to I was so excited for this new wolf exhibit. And I went and I sat there, and my family went and did the rest of the zoo. And I just sat there
Yeah.
staring at it with my camera and like just watching them because I don't know, I just fell in love with them and I always have. So if I walked up to if I saw one, I would just be like, "Hello, friend.
Yeah.
You are mine now."
See, and those are both perfectly logical answers. Those are logical answers.
I mean,
Perfectly logical answers. We have a we
Makes
have
sense,
a
right?
we have a wolf like we have
reasonable
a
answers.
Havoc.
Logical.
Havoc is a quarter
Yeah, I mean,
wolf,
yeah, you
and
need to come
everything
visit
that
us.
I've
We
learned
have a
about
pet.
Havoc tells me wolves can't be that dangerous. I think it's been
Yeah.
exaggerated. He's a big giant baby.
He
And
is.
why would they raise us on Winnie the Pooh if we weren't supposed to hug and follow bears into the woods for adventures?
Yes, these are
exactly.
arguments are defensible. They have good arguments
I'm
behind them.
I'm just
I'm
saying.
not sure logic is the yeah, but yes, you need to come visit us because we have a wolf.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it is his wolf part that is the antisocial part. Like he
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
when we now have a pet wolf in a city of 5 million
Yeah.
people, and we're walking him through the streets, and people terrify him because he wants to be running around
Oh.
the wilds of Canada.
We are the only people that he
Yeah.
trusts. Like
Oh.
we are the only people that he trusts.
Yes, but I mean, if you came and pet him, he would
Yeah.
decide that he loved you,
Yeah.
and so then you'd be fine.
He has a healthy distrust of men.
Yeah, that's true. Which is also, I mean,
Good
that
for
is
him.
now that is logical.
Straight men.
Yeah,
Yes, very
Yeah.
logical.
that
We had somebody over the house and Havoc went up and let him pet him and I was like, wait. And then about 3 minutes later I realized that he was a gay gentleman and I was like, that makes sense.
yes, yeah, he knows. He's safe.
Yeah, he knows. He knows. But
He has a good
everything I've
gaydar.
ever experienced in my life tells me that bears and wolves are really not that scary.
Well, they do, I mean,
It's
they'll probably
interesting.
leave you alone.
I mean,
You know,
they would probably be less inclined to leave me alone when I run up and attempt
that's,
to
I
hug
think,
them.
the issue. I think, yeah, it's when you run up and go, I'm going to give this strange animal a hug.
See, and my number one, absolutely, I know I would die immediately, but I would still do it, is a polar bear. So I'm right there with you
Oh
with
yeah.
bears.
You get
Polar
it?
bears, like I know they're terrifying. I know they will absolutely and utterly demolish me, but I don't care. They're soft and fuzzy and
Yeah,
they're white and pretty and they're very tall. I just want a bear hug.
yeah.
Did you ever listen to the podcast, The White Vault?
So
No.
good.
It's a horror like audio drama set in
Svalbard.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Svalbard. There are polar bears. That one, I think, weaned me of the need to pet polar bears on specific.
Yeah,
I
once you,
I watched a polar bear documentary with somebody going and studying them and seeing how like explaining how polar bears attack and all of that and I'm still no.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
she's
that's
like, now I understand the sacrifice I would be
Yeah.
making. And
Well, and I learned that polar bears have that because they have such a hard time finding food, they have a specific threshold of energy in which they will expend trying to hunt a specific food source, like a smell. And if they can't catch it within this like certain amount of energy, they give up and walk away because they'll waste more than they will consume.
so they'll
So,
they'll smash your car for a certain amount of time
yeah.
and then decide I cannot get into the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Uh,
So if I can get close enough to hug it and then climb a tall enough tree, I have a
not a lot of
chance.
trees in
you know,
places where you're
That's
running
fair.
across the tundra.
That's fair.
and if
All right.
you go listen to The White Vault,
I might
you
have
learn
to.
all the things they can climb.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so we like to start the podcast off on a nice light note before we move on to the heavier stuff. Um, And
Just
so,
hypothetical, mortal danger. It's fine.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Just a touch, just to keep it nice and light and casual. Before we move on to my next question, which can be a little trickier, what is something that you used to believe in that you no longer believe?
You want to take this one, Jess? Or start it, Jess?
So I have a very silly one.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is kind of universal for people. I don't know if they do this in other countries, but people who grew up in the States who like pay very close attention to things. Um, so mattresses and a lot of times pillows have those tags that say in all caps, do not remove.
Uh-huh.
I swear, growing up, I thought that if I removed that tag, the police would show up at my door and cart me away.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like I was just like, I'm done. That's it.
Right?
That's how I'm going to like, I don't know, be sacrificed to the local jail or something.
To the local polar bear.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the more serious answer though is so you mentioned that Marie and I met on reading Animorphs. We met on an Animorphs forum as adults, but both of us grew up reading the books. And so that was a time period where the like one book a month, one kid's book a month model was very popular. You had those, you had Goosebumps, you had things
Yeah.
like that coming out constantly. And I read both of them. I read a lot of books like that, and I like very much put those authors up on this big pedestal of like, they're like the wizard in the tower type of thing. And I think that was exacerbated by the fact that back then there wasn't social media. These authors didn't have an author presence. They might go and do like school visits or something like that, but the only way you got to interact with them is if you were lucky enough to be at the school that they went to, which most people were not. And so my only way to connect with these authors was handwriting them a note, putting it in the actual mail, and hoping that I would get something
Right.
back, which usually was a canned letter from the publisher, not an actual letter from the author. And so I grew up with this idea that authors were this sort of like mythological creature.
Yeah.
And then, as an adult who is also an author and who knows a lot of authors, I'm like, oh yeah, they're just
Hmm.
people. They're just normal people.
Yeah, it is wild. I've met some of my idols. You meet these folks and delightful. Like I've not had bad experiences, but you meet them and yes, that is it's deflating, not because they did anything wrong, but because they're human beings. And now I
Yeah.
thought, Nettie Okorafor or whatever, like she was wonderful. And at the same time, she was a person. And I was like, aren't you supposed
Yeah.
to glow? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I had that.
I read your books. I believe you glow.
I had kind of the opposite, the opposite of. So I've also met a lot of authors since Ben and I started dating, and I've discovered like not only are they like, normal average people, but they're far, far too modest for the magic that they are able to
Mm,
create in their writing.
hmm.
Like even Ben, like tell people you wrote this book. Like
Yeah, I do struggle with that.
but I had kind of the opposite experience of because going to conventions, sometimes there will be somebody there that I'm like, okay, it's worth going to meet this person. And we had one in particular that was I grew up, I was a book nerd. I was Scholastic Book Fair was my favorite day of the year. Watching Reading Rainbow every single day as going to church, and the convention that we went and met him. And I that is when I had to remind myself that TV actors, writers,
Yeah.
celebrities are normal people, humans that have
Off days.
off days,
Right. It's
and do
not.
not always have to fit with the they can have days when they are perhaps a little short-tempered. And I kind of had to remind 8-year-old myself, 8-year-old me, that was a perfectly logical human response to somebody who's been behind a table for 3 days straight,
Right.
interacting with fans and putting on, and somebody who masks, right, has ADHD
Mm,
and has learned how to mask. And I had to remind myself,
Yeah.
it is okay to have. Ben had a wonderful experience with him.
Yeah.
Mine, 5 minutes later, not so
It
great,
was just a little short.
a
Yeah.
little short. And I had to remind myself, celebrities are they are people
they're
too. It
people
is okay
too.
to have, for the most part, they've been wonderful and gracious. That one in particular for me was like, that he was the god of my childhood, right?
Yeah.
They would have been like meeting Mr. Rogers and having him, tell you to go away. Would have been like, oh, you are, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
So Marie, how about you? What's something you used to believe in and have and no longer believe?
So I am kind of turning this question inward. What's something I used to believe about myself and I no longer believe? And this is more of a recent thing. So, um, all of my life, I don't know if it's because I was socialized as a girl in the South in, Baptist churches or what, or if it's just my personality, but my entire family tends to be fairly non-confrontational, especially on my dad's side. And I tend to take after him in that way, that part of my personality. And I was pretty afraid of confrontation.
Mm.
And I laughed, but like very much, and thought like I'm just bad at it and I'm gonna avoid it. Um, and I've learned, I think some of it was sort of forced. I've been through a divorce actually since I met you, Ben, and you were very gracious about that and that time, and because I think it was happening around the time that
Of mine as well.
Unrelenting
Yes,
came out, so
I know it is.
it was
Yeah.
impacting everything.
Oh, it's a lot.
It is, but also like running a business, you have to have sometimes challenging conversations. Um, and what I've realized now as I'm entering my 40s is that I actually really value conflict as a way of clarifying values and what's important and like what are the goals. And I think also the act of co-writing with you, Jess, has helped me see that conflict can actually strengthen the relationship because inevitably we are co-authors and we are going to have disagreements about the way the story goes here and there. But the fact that we've been able to go through that and say, well, what's best for the story? What story are we trying to tell? And most importantly, what's best for our friendship? So that we can maintain that for the long term because as much as I hope people love these books, like sorry, the friendship is the most important thing to me.
But I think establishing those
Yeah,
priorities is intensely important. Like to say,
yeah,
okay, we both agree the friendship is here and the story is here, and if we both go
yeah,
into it acknowledging that, we're going to be able to have that discussion in a different way. Yeah, I think that's really vital.
yeah. So I'm actually in the process of adjusting my day job trajectory right now, and I've become a mediator who mediates conflict and am hopefully on the path to becoming an organizational ombuds. And I mean, all day, every day, it's going to be hearing people who are in conflict. And I'm just really proud of myself for realizing that like this is a thing that I've had character arc growth.
Yes. Well, but I
That's
think it's
been good.
good for your clients to have somebody who doesn't step into this saying, I've always been intensely comfortable with conflict. Conflict is, is no big deal to me. So now let's deal with your conflict. Recognizing this is going to be really tough for a
Yeah.
lot of your clients because they will come from the same place, will make you particularly good at that.
yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's actually really helpful to say to people when they come in for mediation, they're scared a lot of the
Mhm.
time and nervous to say like, I've been in your shoes. The first time I ever had an interaction with mediation, I was in one of your seats. Like I was one of the parties in a mediation. So, you know, I'm still here. You're gonna still be here. We're
Yes.
gonna get through this.
I had to learn this the other way, where,
Mm.
confrontation, argument, as a philosophy major in college, like argument, I
Oh,
love argument, and having to learn, oh, but that's not comfortable for a lot of people. And so starting off any kind of mediation process, I can't go into it going, today we're going to talk about this thing that's intensely difficult for you, but I think it's fun. This is going to be really tough for a lot of those folks, but yeah, I think you will put them at ease.
Well,
oh, thank you.
the two of us have a particular dynamic where we both enjoy lively and often
Yes.
loud debates. And it can be It could be the first time Noah watched us do it. He was like, I'm gonna leave. This is really uncomfortable. You guys are arguing really loud. And I had to like later go up to him and be like, we're not arguing.
Well,
We're just having a conversation.
and listeners to the show will not be surprised by this at all, but we are both interrupters, and learning over the course of my life that that's cultural.
Hmm.
And so, some people find it incredibly off-putting and they find it to be rude. And, if you're interrupting me, you're not really listening. And my culture is if you're not interrupting, you're not really listening. Interrupting is a way of conveying that you are engaged. And so having to learn to kind of evaluate, is this person an interrupter or not?
Well,
Um,
in my world, it was ableism,
yeah.
right? It's a common ADHD trait, and so it's also one of the ways that I can tell very quickly whether I'm interacting with somebody who also has ADHD because we're both back and forth going, nobody's gonna finish a sentence here.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I don't
Yeah.
say the thought, I'm gonna forget the thought.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
It's either that or walk around with post-it notes in my hand. So,
Yeah, you can write notes.
and then are you really listening if you're jotting notes down every 3 seconds?
So, in the midst of all of this, you've got the book coming out this week. You've had all the various other kinds of work promotions. You've been very, very busy. So, if you haven't had time, I understand. But have you had time to daydream? And if so, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
Napping.
Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody about what's been going on that has been getting in the way of
Ugh.
daydreaming time because you both were on this cruise, right?
Yes.
Yes. Which is one of my favorite times of year, every year. It is a delight and a joy. We go on the Writing Excuses annual cruise. It is an opportunity for several dozen sci-fi and fantasy writers to get together on a ship and work on their stories, take classes, write collaboratively, socialize. And it's one of those experiences where I think a lot of us live very day job focused lives and aren't
Mhm.
necessarily living in areas that have big writer communities. Some of us larger than others. I certainly don't have a large one here in Kalamazoo. And it's one of those experiences every year where it's like, oh, my people do exist and not
Yes.
just online. Like they're here, they're around us. We can encourage one another. We can have those interrupty conversations where we're just like feeding into a joint
Mhm.
idea and it just gets more and more and more exciting, or where we're sharing our idea and like we get that immediate feedback from people. And it's just magical. I love it. I look forward to it every year and am deeply, deeply thankful and grateful for the friendships that have built out of that particular experience.
And where does that
Yeah.
ship start from, and what is the kind of itinerary? Where are you at as you are doing all this?
So every year's a little different. And in fact, if folks are watching this or listening to this and they've been interested or this piques their interest, so this is the Writing Excuses podcast. They host this event, but the 2026 cruise is the last annual cruise for now. So this is your last chance, and they do have a scholarship. So if there's a financial burden, and they also have a Writer of Color scholarship, just head to writingexcuses.com/retreats and you can get all that info there. But the
And I'll put that in the
2026
show notes as
cruise,
well. So folks who are listening,
perfect,
scroll down, it'll be in your show notes.
perfect. So the 2026 cruise is going to leave out of Seattle, Washington, and head up to Alaska and British Columbia.
Yeah.
Um, And last year we started out of LA and we went down the Pacific coast of Mexico. So it kind of changes year by year. They also host land events sometimes. So there may be other opportunities to hang out with writers if 2026 is not in the cards for someone. But we're really so Jess and I are on staff for this event. And so we're really careful to make sure that we reduce FOMO as much as possible. So, like, while the ship is docked at port, we don't have classes so that people can, get off and do stuff or go do excursions, or they can just relax and write and hang out with each other, whatever you need to do. And so Then the days that we're at sea all day, those tend to be quite busy with a lot of classes. There's like one-on-one opportunities with the instructors. There's small group like unlocking sessions if you're stuck on a problem, or critique sessions. So it's really a treat. And honestly, the best part of it is just meeting your people.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like a dream. I would love to do that. That would be because you're right. That community part is important. I mean, writing can be isolating, and you two at least get to co-author, which is a cool thing if that works for people. Writers out there, that doesn't work for everybody, and you've got to certainly find the right person. But at least it makes it less isolating. But yeah, writing can be lonely. So finding those chances, I encourage people jump at those.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
well, let's.
interesting what you said about co-writing because Marie and I are both working on solo projects as well. And I keep having this moment where I go and I start working on my solo project. I'm like, but, but who do I ask the thing?
Uh-huh.
I have to use all of my brain by myself. So I'm like
Ew,
frantically
no.
writing to get to a certain point so that I can send it to Marie for feedback because
Yes,
I'm like,
get some beta
I need
reading.
another brain on this.
Yes. Well, let's take our break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you both about, some little bit heavier stuff about how you're using your platform to push back in this time that we're all living in.
Unrelenting, Book 1 of the Grigori Cycle, was a finalist for the Book Pipeline Award before it was even published, and it won the New Mexico Arizona Book Award for LGBTQ fiction. Now, Jes Honard and Marie Parks are back with Undeniable, the Grigori Cycle, Book 2. Bridget has saved her sister Dahlia from imprisonment, but their reunion has come at an enormous cost. Their friend was murdered in the rescue efforts, and Dahlia herself is no longer fully human. As the sisters race to uncover the key to resurrection, Dahlia's former captors pursue them, coveting the ancient powers and seeking justice for their own fallen companions. Multi-Hugo award-winning author Mary Robinette Kowal called Unrelenting a tapestry of emotion that effortlessly weaves together the threads of grief and obsession. Undeniable will be available everywhere on October 28th, but you can pre-order your copy now.
Are you a writer? Of any kind. Prose fiction, poetry, song lyrics, plays, screenplays, whatever. Are you an anti-fascist? Then you meet all the necessary criterion to join us for the Anti-Fascist Write-a-thon. Writing can sometimes feel like a lonely pursuit, and this is exacerbated when we're shouting into the void while the world is going to hell. But you're not alone. Millions of us oppose this rise of authoritarianism, and many of us are willing to proudly wear the label Antifa. We're going to get as many people together as we can via Zoom on January 3rd and write. You can work on whatever you want. We'll take breaks to commiserate with our colleagues. It will be fun and productive. And our friends and family will root us on by donating to our efforts. Donations will go to funding the Antifa Lit Journal, so your participation helps the authors, poets, and artists who are using their talent and hard work to fight back against the rising tide of fascism around the world. Register for the Anti-Fascist Write-a-thon today through the NotAPipe Publishing website. See you on January 3rd.
I feel like
That's
you're practicing.
why.
What did you just find?
Did you find it?
Okay, so I know why.
Champing, chomping.
I know why it's I know I took sorry, I took our short intermission to Google why it's
Yes, tell
champing and
me.
not chomping. So champing stems from an old Middle English word, most likely, and it refers to the actual like grinding of a horse's teeth. Like
Horses teeth, they
uh
don't chomp.
and so the like the chomping at the bit, champing at the bit was when they have the bit in their mouth and it's grinding their teeth over the bit is how the phrase was originally intended.
Right.
And we have, Americanized that to chomping, which is when the horse like bites at the bit as it's in its mouth. So they're two chomping and champing are technically interchangeable now as idioms, but they actually refer to two distinct actions.
One is the grinding of
One
the
is
teeth.
grinding their teeth
Biting.
over the bit, and then one of them is actually like biting at it.
In that, I feel like if we're trying to get at the
Interesting.
idea that people are very excited, chomping makes more sense. Like they are excited and therefore
Yeah.
they are chomping
Yeah.
rather than they are so excited
Yeah.
they are grinding their teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
like
is,
I
I
don't
just
want to be
didn't know I didn't know
responsible for
what
dental
champing
issues.
meant,
yeah.
and so why we would say champing. but now it makes sense if you know that champing is the like the
Oh.
grinding motion.
I think we're keeping this in the show. This is important.
I listen, you can't give me something, you can't give me a word or a phrase and not tell me why.
A shout out. I believe I was introduced to this by Karen Eisenbray. I think I used the phrase
Oh.
chomping at the bit in one of my books. I'm not positive. And one of our colleagues and editors pointed out, I should change the spelling because it's really champing at the bit. And I was like, what? I
Mm.
think that was probably a Karen. She's got a really good eye for that. And she notices
Huh.
these, idiomatic
Yeah.
phrases that I'm using and says it's actually the other one. There was one that was about. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it. Where she called it out, and I was like, "Really?" And I had to look it up, and of course she was right. So shout out to Karen.
There are a couple as I go behind her reading and
Yeah.
she'll point out something and I'll be like, this is not the first time that Karen, if it was her that brought this up, it's not the first time that Karen has led me to the internet to find out why.
Yes. Yes.
There's
She's
been
good.
a few.
So shout out to our colleague Karen Eisenbray. Well,
This has
welcome
been
back everyone from the
etymology
break. So
hour.
I think I'm keeping that. That's good.
Listen,
That's good.
our listeners,
And
I'm
yes,
sure, eager to know why.
yes, we're fighting fascism, but also we need to get etymology of champing versus chomping.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you both in this era of, I mean, we're seeing on the news rising fascism
Excuse me.
worldwide. What is something that you want to make sure that our listeners know about? That's that where's an area where they can push back.
So, I used to work at Holocaust Museum Houston. Um, and my workplace was trying to be proactive in terms of self-education and just staying, ahead of trends that we are seeing. And so not everybody in the world has the same educational background in that topic. And so I reached out to them, and their education team is actually going to do a training for us around contemporary connections with the Holocaust and the lead up to it. Um, and I just want people to be aware that there are a lot of educational resources out there. When you hear somebody say something, they're like, "Oh, you're just sort of overblowing it or whatever." There's actually some great resources out there. This particular one is free, although I'm sure they are happy to accept donations. Um, and they can do it virtually anywhere in the world, or in person. They have a great museum in Houston. There are, however, museums like this all over
Mhm.
the US and beyond. And so I think just taking a look at what may be available in your community, and when I say community, I may mean your whole country, especially if you're in a smaller place where you don't have like, a kind of more niche museum like that. Um, that's that may be an opportunity to bring something to one's workplace, where you can really have a big impact and get people on the same page about um, historical markers to be looking for. When we say never again, what does that actually mean? How, like, what are the things we should
Yeah.
be looking out for? What are the things that are particularly scary, that particularly advance a fascist agenda? And so there's a lot to be learned from history that's not even really that old. So
Right. Well, and I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think it is an excellent resource, particularly because that question of the kind of parallels is so fraught, because people will say you're taking away from the horror of the Holocaust by making those connections, and it's important to continuously kind of remind ourselves. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? These are
Yeah.
not the same. And
Yeah.
no, we are not saying these two things are identical, but those connections. And so if those can be brought forward by experts who really are knowledgeable about the Holocaust and are saying, we recognize these things are distinct and yet there are so many lessons we can learn. So yeah, I will
Yeah.
absolutely post and I think the fact that they're willing to do it virtually, that's wonderful for
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's kind of interactive. You like get to kind of do an interactive tour of the exhibit and stuff. And I think what's powerful about it is like, there are great resources. Like Stacey Abrams has just put out a great resource of like, I think it's the 10 steps to
Mhm.
authoritarianism. There are a lot of sociologists who talked about warning signs of genocide, warning signs of authoritarian fascism, et cetera, you name it. But I think what's powerful about connecting it with a specific time period is that there are actual stories,
Yeah.
and that we can, I mean, we love to write, we love to read, we love stories. And so it's something that can really create, an opportunity to see the humanity in it. And I mean, this is, why everybody ever has read, not ever, but like a lot of school children will read the Diary of Anne Frank, right? Because it humanizes it, it makes it real, it makes it connecting for children, for teenagers and beyond. And so that's why I think it's particularly helpful to lean into other historical examples of these types of trends.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Jess, how about you? What are some things where you're saying, I hope people are paying attention to this?
Yeah, Marie mentioned looking into your community, and I think right now, when trust is being eroded on so many levels, that word community is more important than ever. And I think this applies for like fighting back, but also giving back.
Mhm.
So things like going to your local No Kings rally or something like that. Yeah, that's a way to fight back. But also things like, oh, hey, at the time of this recording, the government is still shut down. People are losing SNAP benefits. Where's the local food bank? How
Yeah.
can you give back in that way and make sure that the community members who are in a position to suffer the most are taken care of? And I think we live in a society that it's easy to say you care from behind a screen sometimes. And it's easy to repost the thing or to go to the event. And I think that next step is also important. Not to minimize the importance of like going to the rally or posting on your platform or anything like that. I think those are important too. And in fact, after the most recent No Kings rally, I came across, I used to live in Berkeley, California, which is like the protest place
Right.
in, the United States. It's kind of what they're known for. And someone was asking why there were so few college students at the No Kings rally. And a lot of university students were popping on and saying, because it's performative and we're doing real work to fight it. And I'm like, sitting there and I'm like, I mean,
Both
I
and.
appreciate the work you're doing too, because they're involved in like more community action things, but also like both are important and both
Mhm.
are valid. And when we start tearing ourselves apart, we weaken everything we're trying to do. So I think part of it is like count everything that you're doing. Like it does count. It's not just to make yourself feel better. And then also looking at those opportunities to really like help the people that are actually like living in your own community and potentially in danger in one way or another.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there are levels to that that are I think that's such an important point that the community that we need to build is kind of twofold right now because we're on a knife's edge. So whether that is things fall apart institutionally, those communities are going to be essential for getting people food, like we're talking very basic resources. But also, if we are able to defeat this, that can't just be about, okay, we defeated this threat of fascism and we revert to the harms of the past.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of community do we want to build on the other side of this? And so that
Yeah.
community building work, it needs to be, the fighting back is only a step. And then what are we going to build? And that local community work can be so essential for helping people feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. This is the kind of community we could live in.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think it's creating it now, right?
Mhm.
Just in a smaller communities, right? Like, so I have a little free library in front of my house, and I've started putting like rice and beans in there too, because again, I know SNAP benefits are running out, and it's something I can do. But that's because I want to live in a world where nobody's hungry anyway, right? And
Right.
I
Yeah.
that's such a small version, but I mean something like a food bank, something like a mutual aid organization, or effort is already creating the world that we
Yeah.
want to live in.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's not even at the end of the tunnel, it's right now.
Yeah.
And that's everything that, as left-wing socialists, right? We get, mocked for, right? Yes, I want to live in a community in which children are not shot going to school. I want to live in a community in which children do not die of measles because their parents have been tricked into thinking vaccines do harm. I don't want to live in a community in which autistic kids kill themselves because they've been told they are better off dead than being autistic.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
I don't
where
want to
anyone
live
goes
in a world
hungry in
in
the
which
wealthiest.
children go hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wealthiest country
Yeah.
in the world, and there are
People
people
die
going
because they can't
like
access
that.
their insulin
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
freeze to death because housing is too expensive. Yes, the
So it's
radical notion that I can enjoy my life while also like being happy that other people are not suffering,
yeah. But
which
I
is
think
Yeah.
apparently a
building that community can make
radical
that
concept.
possible, so that it's not just this must stop, but
Yeah.
what will continue
Yeah.
beyond that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
I mean, I shit on Berkeley a little bit in that, but when I lived in Berkeley, I saw it so much because it is a place where there is a lot of income disparity and a
Yeah.
lot of like housing disparity and things like that. And like, there is no neighborhood in the East Bay where you don't find people leaving food out somewhere. We had a community garden and people would on the entrance to the community garden, there's like a concrete stoop and people would just leave cans. It was built into the fabric of the community in certain parts of the East Bay that like you just don't question it, you just do it. And that is something that I think, the greater United States community could use a little bit more of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the
Mhm.
challenge is you develop a place that is a good place to live, and then everybody wants to live there, and then housing prices are very high. Berkeley is a very expensive place to live. On the other hand,
Yeah.
it is a place where people care about one another. And I think there are a lot of places that are kind of feeling that pinch, where it's, folks want to move to the blue cities, and the blue cities are prohibitively expensive. And so figuring out
Hmm.
how to create those values that make a place like Berkeley appealing. You don't have to move to Berkeley for
Yeah.
that. Make your community into that. Make your
Yeah.
town into Berkeley. That's a
I'll
radical idea
say,
that'll scare a lot of people, telling them to make their small town into Berkeley. Make your small town into
I
Berkeley.
mean, yeah, maybe your own version of Berkeley. It does
Yes.
have its faults. It is
Yes.
definitely not a paradise, especially because it is so entrenched in the higher education system, which
Yeah.
has its own things. I mean, the University of California is the biggest landlord in the city. That has tons of issues.
Yeah.
But that would be a whole different podcast
Yes,
episode.
the challenges of academics and
Yes.
the entrenched hierarchical structure of academics. We could do a fun one on that too, because yeah, I'm as somebody who loves education, I also can see it has a lot of
Yeah.
flaws. I had a principal who was kind of terrible as an actual on the ground leader, but he was a very good theorist. It's because he spent all his time reading books instead of being a principal. And one of the points that he made that was really good at one of our meetings was a lot of education is figuring out how much hypocrisy we can bear.
Mm.
And that really
Mm.
stuck with me. Like, yeah, we go home every day and go, I know for a fact that this institution is doing harm in this way and this way and this way. I hope it is doing more good than harm. And that's really that's tough. And I think a lot of educators have to live with how much hypocrisy we can bear.
Well, I mean, say what you want about the education system in America, but and public social services in general, but for myself personally, public libraries and public school kept me alive as a child. They
Mm.
they they I mean, that's it. It's as complicated and as simple as that. The access to free books
Yeah.
and a safe space in which to read them made it so that I survived my childhood.
Well, and I wanted to ask you both about that. So, one of the things that we see with the kind of strategy coming out of the right is let's overwhelm people.
Yeah.
So if you start to go, oh my gosh, the Epstein files is going to be the story, quick, let's knock down the East Wing, right? You can get people angry about something else,
Yeah.
and we can miss out on what are the things that are going on. So what are some of those things where you're saying, I want people to make sure they are paying attention to this?
Oh, it's so many. Um, uh, so something that's been helpful for me is to pay attention to the news, but so that I can still be like a happy person living my life and like being productive in the things that I have to do to like get a paycheck. And then also the things I want to do, like writing books and reading books and hanging out with my friends. Like I do need to focus it. And so I've found, when there was the threat of public land sell-off, that was really helpful for me to focus on that because I had a story around that. I used to RV full time and I went to so many different national parks and to so many wildlife refuges and really understood the importance of that, even though I don't have a background in ecology. Um, so that was kind of like my thing of the day, and it was successful. Now there is this roads thing that is causing problems, but I don't think it's quite as catastrophic. It's still catastrophic, but a little less. Um, so
That's
my thing right of the moment right now is around public libraries, actually, Chris, and around just the decimation of funding around that.
yeah.
So when I worked at the Holocaust Museum in Houston, they have a library also and an archive. And so I was really proud. I actually helped them get their very first, I was a grant writer for them. So I helped them get their very first federal grant, and it was an IMLS grant. So Institute of Museum and Library Sciences or Studies, not sure which, sciences probably. And it was all around preserving oral testimonies. But I know that those types of grants are just gone now. And so, yes, keep using your public library. But I also like was just made aware of um, how for many library systems in the US at least, and again, I'm not a librarian, so if somebody's listening to this who knows more than me, please correct, and social media comments and stuff like that. But to my understanding, um, that like anytime you like say, yeah, I'd like to borrow this audiobook, it's a like a per
Yeah.
like borrow charge. And so if you don't listen to it, they still get charged anyway. So like make sure that like when you do click, yeah, I'd like to borrow this digital
Mm.
thing, an ebook, an audiobook, whatever, that you do actually have the time and space to consume it as much as possible. I mean, obviously, like the library wants you to have this for free. So if you can't get through it and you have to renew it, like that's fine. But like do what you can to try to be a good steward of that. And if there's a Friends of the Library organization in like your county or your parish or whatever, see what you can do to donate to them or like participate in their book sales. Sometimes there's books that like, the library has to, get rid of from the collection because they haven't been borrowed enough lately. And so if you buy them, that money goes back into the Friends of the Library system, which then goes straight back into the library. And this is how they can keep their hours up. This is how they can keep people employed and they can keep the doors open. And libraries are so much more than books, right? There's resources you can like in our library, you can get seeds for edible plants. That's a lot of libraries have that. Libraries will have, stuff you can borrow for tools. And they're just a warm place inside. They provide internet access to people who can't afford it. Like they're just such important hubs in our community. So that's sort of my current drum I'm beating.
Well, and I think
Yeah, our
the only thing I would add to that or compliment you on that is it is so important for folks to think about not just do I support this thing, but what is an effective way
Mhm.
to support this thing?
mm,
Because I think there are folks who are saying, I want to support my public library, so I'll check out an ebook. Well, if you don't know, you may not have actually helped, right? And thinking through and kind of taking the time to learn about how do I support it? Because if the local library is a warm place for folks who are houseless in your community, that is not warmth you particularly need. And yet it is vital for the, health of your community. And probably the best way you can help your local library is through your voting and through
Hmm.
your activism at your local city council. And you can have more influence at the local level than you can at the national anyway. And
Yep.
so, yes, participate in No Kings, but then go talk to your local city council. And
Hmm.
there are going to be times when it's going to be, they're going to have to make tough choices. And I know in our community in the United States, before we left, they were really having to deal with this very difficult situation where funds were
Yeah.
being, were constricting because of cuts from the state and federal level. And it's hard to say in a community out loud, hey, maybe we're paying the police too much. We need a library.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And especially when, the police in our community were beloved and were, good people. And so people didn't want to say, hey, maybe we need fewer police, but they
Okay, it
were
was
getting to the
easier for
point.
me to say.
Yeah, yeah,
It was easier for me to say our small town of 10,000 people has the same allocates the same percentage to our police budget as they do in Portland and Corvallis.
it was huge. It was a
Yet we
very
have
large
to
police budget.
close our public library 2 days a week because we can't fund it.
So figuring out what is the most effective way, and one of the things I
Mhm.
would encourage you to do is talk to the experts, and the expert in your town is the librarian when
Mhm.
they're off the clock. So they're not allowed to tell you while they're on the clock how you should vote, but
Yeah.
get to know the people who know and figure out how you can, support and things like the Friends of the Library groups. Those are really
Yep.
important groups to participate in doing so in a kind of an effective, thoughtful way. And on that note, Jess, how about you? What are some things where you're saying people need to be watching out for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that has been said is so true. And just to kind of like piggyback off the second part of what you were saying, Chris, is it's not just the libraries, it's the schools.
Yeah.
And I know that like all of us are fully on board with this. A lot of us have a background in education. I was a high school teacher for years. And I think it's important to pay attention to the impact, even if you don't have children who are going through the school system,
Yes.
because the things that they're being taught are the things that the adults of tomorrow may believe and act on and vote on and all of these
And vote
things.
on.
And
That's
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
like, I think everyone, there are a lot of people who are very progressive who are like, it sucks what's happening with the Department of Education. It sucks what's happening in the schools. And they don't necessarily have a child in the
Yeah.
schools. So they're like, I'm going to funnel my activism elsewhere and things like that. And so I think it's really important to remember the libraries that are attacked first are the school libraries. They're the easiest ones to shut
Yep.
down. They're the easiest ones to pull books out of.
Yeah.
And one single parent with an agenda who's disgruntled about
Mhm.
something can have a massive, massive impact on how that school is, how lessons are taught and how the libraries are stocked. And so, like, the inverse is true too.
Mhm.
Like, the community can fight back against that and can ask questions about, well, why are we teaching this and not that? Or why are we pulling these books off the shelves? And like not letting those one or two parents who are, literally making it their agenda to try and get as many books off the shelf as possible, like not let them get away with it without a fight. I think it's really important to pay attention to what's happening in the school systems. And it's unfortunately very patchwork, like from one country to, or one state to another, one city to another. Like it's very different. I used to teach in Houston, Texas. I don't think I could teach at the school
Mhm.
that I taught at anymore. Like I do not think I would have a job because I had a safe space sticker up, things like that. I am queer. I do not hide the fact that I am married to a woman. Like those things, I literally do not think I would be hired. And if I still had that job, I think I would be let go from it. And like that's a weird place to be. And it is very important to think about like who are the people who are being released from these positions? Who are the people who are being allowed to remain in those positions? And I don't know. I don't have an answer to it other than pay attention and like what you said, Ben, about like voting locally. Like as we're recording this, we're a couple weeks out from local elections, and it's an off year. It's not a presidential election year. These are the most important years to vote,
Right.
and like the school system is one of those places where the community voting has a big impact.
Well, and also your point about a very few voices can have a huge impact on local schools. I will tell folks if you are listening to this and you're saying, I don't even know if that is a threat in my community, Don't wait for it to become a
Yeah.
threat in your community. Prevention goes a long way. And so if you can show up to your local school board, I know I'm asking for an evening of your month, but show up and say, what is your system to protect libraries and protect teachers? Do you have a policy that prevents books from being banned and removed? And what you may find is these well-intentioned volunteers who are this local school board are going, we haven't even thought of that yet because it hasn't been a problem.
Mhm.
Don't wait for it to be a problem. Develop a good, robust system to say, how do we prevent this so that when somebody comes in and says, I think this book's obscene, what does obscene even mean,
Yeah.
right? If they've got a good system where they can say, oh, that's great. You have to read it and you have to actually identify, and we need to sit down with a committee that's already been identified and talk about that. Most of the time, those folks will literally go away. They'll just go,
Yeah.
oh, this school district is not going to be one where I can easily get 1,000 books banned with an
Yeah.
angry letter. So get involved now in protecting your local school. So where is the best place for folks to find out about the book launch this week?
So our website's probably the best place. It's thegregoribooks.com, and we both have a background in marketing, specifically email marketing. So we are all up in people's inbox right now, although usually it's more just like once a month or so with what we're up to, what we're reading, what we're enjoying, maybe what we're crafting or gardening, things we want to shine a light on, just to help us get through these wild times. And so we definitely invite you to sign up for our newsletter. That's our favorite way to keep in touch with everybody who's read or enjoyed Unrelenting and Undeniable.
It is my favorite, I think, writer newsletter. I'm on a ton of these.
Oh,
I get a ton, and and it's nice to get. Curtis Chen's is also great, very entertaining. I encourage you to folks check out that one too. But yours actually has like content where it's here's what we've been up to, and then like really good ideas. You were the first to expose me to what was the phrase? It was ambient queerness, I believe was the phrase.
hmm.
And I
Yeah.
love that notion of, hey, let's have representation that doesn't have to be the main driver of the plot. It's just recognizing people exist. And I was
Yeah.
like, more ambient queerness. So thank you for that in your newsletter. And as soon as I saw it, I was like telling everybody I know on social media, sign up for this newsletter. It's a good one. So
Yeah.
I will include a note to that in the show notes as well, because people should
Thanks.
follow
And
that one.
we should credit that idea to Charlie, Jane Anders, and Annalee Newitz. At least that's where I heard that phrase was, I think, on their podcast. Our opinions are correct, but I've also adopted it because, yeah, I think there's space for all types of stories in the world of queerness, and that is one of them.
I should check out that.
Yeah.
I just read my first Annalee Newitz novel last year, and oh my gosh, so good. So yes,
Yeah, they're both amazing.
I'll have to catch up. Uh, let's see. Any other things that we should know that are coming up for you folks?
Yeah, so we are going to have a launch party. So if anyone's listening to this in time and happens to be in the Albuquerque area, I'm flying down to spend some time with Marie, and we're going to be having a launch party at one of their independent bookstores, which I'm going to let Marie say the name of because I don't know that I know how to pronounce it.
So it depends on how Spanish you want to get with the pronunciation, but I think the sort of acceptable way to say it around town is Books on the Bosque or Books on the Bosque.
Okay.
And so this is a bookstore. It's a newish independent bookstore in Albuquerque, and it's so lovely. Like I love an independent bookstore anywhere,
Hmm.
anytime, don't get me wrong, but like this one is working really hard to create community. They have like wonderful book clubs. They have a great selection of speculative, but like everything, I don't know, everybody I've ever taken in there, no matter what their reading pleasure is, they find a section, they're like, this is great. And so they're lovely. They have a great cafe stocked with mostly local foods and drinks, and they're wonderful. So that's going to be on Saturday, November 8th, at 5:30 Mountain Time. No purchase necessary. We will have snacks. And right now, I think we have like almost 40 RSVPs.
Oh
So
wow.
it's gonna be exciting.
That's great. Yeah, that's a very good response this early. Oh, that's wonderful. Because you'll also get a ton of drop-ins too. And so
Yeah,
yeah, but folks do RSVP. It is nice for them to know how many snacks to have.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
The other thing that I'll let folks know about is, so speaking of Albuquerque, um, so I run a writing retreat here, and Ben, you've been a part of it
Yes,
before,
very
as a
cool.
pitch guest. So it's specifically for speculative fiction writers, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, alternate history, mystery, all this kind of stuff. So that is taking place in April, late April 2026 in Albuquerque. The weather's beautiful that time of year. And speaking of Charlie Jane Anders, she's actually going to be one of our instructors.
Really?
Yes, as
That's
well as Mary
cool.
Robinette Kowal, Dave Ring from Neon Hemlock. So it's going to be a really great group. And then we also have a scholarship, and the scholarship application is due November 30th. So if anyone checking this out is like, I would love to do that, but it's, not in the budget for me right now, please do apply to that scholarship, because we would love to be able to award that. And we also will have at least Mary Robinette coming in for a reading that's free to the community just before it. We're trying to see if we can work it out with Charlie Jane's schedule, but I can't promise her yet. But anyway, it's super fun. This is our third year. We've been sold out every year, and I'm excited to see what happens in 2026. So
Yeah, that's cool. Marie Robinette, for folks who don't know her work, follow her, check out her stuff. She's really amazing and also a good follow. She'll just take you on walks in the woods. And so
yeah,
yeah,
and
she's fun.
she's actually our audiobook narrator for
Yes,
Unrelenting
that's
too,
right.
and
Yes.
she
Such
has a amazing background in acting, and is a great, she narrates for John Scalzi and
yeah.
all sorts of people. So we're just kind of like
Yes.
hanging on
Yeah.
for the ride over here.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and it's very cool that in the whole Sandia Starforge's experience, like people come out of there and they're like, this was really, really valuable for me. So
Oh.
yes, I encourage folks check that out. So as people are going into their week, what is your advice for them? Oh, I stole that. That was yours.
You did that
I
twice
did it
now.
twice. You take it away.
Twice.
Oh,
Man, just
cut mine out.
speaking.
I
No,
apologize.
we're not. We're just gonna leave that one in.
Oh, okay. We'll leave all this in. You take
No, we won't. That's fine. I will allow you to look better for our viewers. That's okay. I'm
it.
just wave my hand.
Now it's staying.
Well,
No, it's only because Ben
no,
knows I have a sore throat, so he's trying to save me
Yes,
from
yeah,
speaking.
that's
Right?
why.
That's
it's
why.
Mhm.
compassion.
Right?
It's
Absolutely.
proactive compassion.
Yes. Right?
Um,
Yeah.
So
well,
going into the new week, do you have a final piece of advice for our listeners?
yeah, so, thinking about the Sandia Star Forgers experience. So on the last night of the event, I always give people a little like party favor for coming. And so earlier this year, there was stickers that I gave from an independent maker of all sorts of cute stuff for storytellers and people who like to read stories. And the sticker says, "Our stories bring us together." And it just felt very affirming and true, because I think that like the more we lean into stories, and this is also something Charlie Jane wrote this book, Say You Can't Survive, that Jess gave me as a gift when I was going through a particularly hard time. And here we are again, collectively going through a hard time. And she talks about how speculative stories, but really any type of story, creates not only a chance to envision the world we want to create,
Yeah.
but also secondly, an escape hatch, because we need a safe place to be. And sometimes our lives are not safe. And so we need to create that in our own minds, and authors can help you do that. And it doesn't have to be something that's super cozy. It can be something full of suspense and action and danger, but it's just a chance for our imaginations to run wild, and we can have this sort of collective fun hallucination together. And that, it's a chance to hold fast to what we know to be true, to believe that we're not the only one, that like books are a shared experience, and to create community through that. So to lean into stories, to lean into your favorite worlds, to support authors, to support libraries, to support your community, and to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I
How
have
about you, Jess?
nothing to add. Nothing to add. That was Maria's wise. Listen to her. She has good things to say.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for being on. This was great.
Yes, thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.